they learn to work with teenagers, and advise students in my office at Laurel School, an independent all-girls school that runs from a toddler program through grade 12, where I work as a consulting psychologist and direct the school's Center for Research on Girls. And as the proud mother of 2 daughters, I'm lucky enough to have girls at the heart of my personal life, too. Seeing girls through so many different lenses inspired me to appreciate that the work of becoming an adult sorted itself into meaningful categories. And I realized that we could use those categories, those strands, to measure how girls were coming along in their growth. The concept of developmental strands isn't new. It was first proposed in 1965 by Anna Freud, Sigmund's daughter and an esteemed psychoanalyst in her own right, as a way to organize the normal turmoil of childhood development. She pointed out that children advance on multiple fronts, from dependency to self-reliance, from play to work, from egocentricity to companionship, and noted that we can accurately assess a child's development in terms of maturation along these and other strands. Anna Freud was one of many thinkers to propose a framework for healthy psychological growth. In 1950, Erik Erikson articulated a developmental model spanning from infancy to old age, marked by existential challenges to be mastered at each step along the way. Modern psychologists maintain the tradition of studying development in terms of its component parts. Today, we typically consider aging in terms of its physical, emotional, cognitive, and social facets. In other words, scholarly approaches to human growth broken down into discernible phases now constitute a rich theoretical tradition and a robust body of research. I stand on the shoulders of intellectual giants in proposing a concrete and comprehensive model of what, exactly, girls must accomplish to move through their teenage years successfully. Once I had this model in mind and found that it illuminated so much of what I observed, I introduced it to my graduate students to help them shed light on the complex adolescent cases that come their way. Normally developing teenagers can be impulsive and oppositional, and can even seem downright odd by adult standards. So these budding clinicians needed a framework for evaluating the mental health of teenagers seeking psychotherapy. When we asked, along which strands is the teen progressing, struggling, or stalled, we could make order out of what looked like chaos and orient novice clinicians to the work they were learning to do. Thinking about girls in terms of the strands of teenage development is practical for professionals, but much more important, it allows parents to pinpoint the specific achievements that turn girls into grown-ups and make sense of familiar but confusing teenage behavior. Last year, your daughter may have happily participated in the children's games at your block party, but this year, she insists on hanging out with the adults while complaining that she's bored. What accounts for the shift? It might be that she has begun the work of parting with childhood, Chapter 1. And how do you understand the girl who was equally excited to buy a copy of The Economist for her model UN research paper and 3 copies of an Us Weekly magazine featuring her favorite boy band? Well, you're likely looking at her foray into entering the romantic world, Chapter 6. When you understand the important developmental work your daughter is doing, you'll fret less about some of her puzzling behaviors. Thinking in terms of developmental strands helps us to focus our energy where it's needed most. For example, your daughter may enjoy a loyal group of friends and have succeeded in happily joining a new tribe, Chapter 2. But she might neglect her schoolwork and need help planning for the future, Chapter 5. Perhaps she's aiming to play softball in college, but ignores the advice of her coaches. She may be committed to her goal, but that doesn't cancel out her trouble contending with adult authority, Chapter 4. Attending to the many domains of your daughter's development will keep you from letting her success in some areas distract you from her difficulty in others. And thinking in terms of strands allows us to weigh any one moment in a girl's life against her overall progress on the relevant developmental strand. Should you be worried about your daughter's meltdown when she loses a student council race? That will depend on whether she's usually pretty resilient or instead she's having a lot of trouble harnessing emotions.